Hey guys, today I've got an exclusive look at a brand new body cam tactical shooter. Actually, it's more of a tactical vehicle combat game similar to Squad, but free. Actually, it's really more of a toy soldier FPS game. Okay, actually, this is Operation Harsh Doorstop, a free-to-play early access game created by fellow YouTuber BlueDrake42. The idea is simple, to create an open-ended tactical shooter platform for the community to create mods and transform games into whatever they want. I took a look at this project back when it first launched about 10 months ago, but a lot has changed since then, and today I wanted to highlight the progress that BlueDrake's team has made and talk about the project's true potential down the road, and also look at some of the interesting mods that have cropped up. Let's dive in. Now, since my last coverage of this game, a lot has been added and improved. There's new weapons, new maps, tons of improvements to the mod tools, and all of the content that was in the game at launch has been updated and refined. The most recent addition to the game is official support for vehicles, which is currently in a public test phase. The performance also seems to be a lot more consistent in multiplayer, and one of my main critiques from the initial release being the lack of core content is being quickly addressed with tons of new stuff. The player base also seems to be growing as major updates make their way to the release, and it does seem like this crazy project could actually turn into something quite big. Now, Operation Harsh Doorstop is like a tactical shooter version of Garry's mod. It's less of a standalone game and more of a framework for the community to build whatever games or experiences that they want. Generally speaking within the Milsim universe, but not necessarily limited to just that. The core content and modes exist as examples and assets that the community can use to build with. But the mod tools and basically everything about the game encourages experimentation. Now, of course, the risk with this type of project is that if the community doesn't make content for the game, well, then it's going to go nowhere real fast. However, seeing the player count grow and also tons of substantial mods getting released makes me pretty optimistic about the game's future. At its launch, Operation Harsh Doorstop was pretty bare bones, but playing it now, it's clear why the community is growing. The developers are putting in the time and effort to build a really solid foundation. Now, some of the updates and mods that I wanted to highlight today revolve around the vehicle tests. Currently, you'll find ground vehicles in select servers as mods, and on the back end, the devs are about 90% complete on the game's ground vehicle implementation. And once they hit 100%, they'll be working on custom vehicles and expanded options. They're also testing helicopters right now, which is a pretty big step because it expands the maps and modes substantially. With the addition of air vehicles, maps could be way bigger, and the developers and modders could expand the mission concepts to helicopter hot drops, aerial support, dogfighting, you name it. Now, the game also has a much improved animation system. The launch version of the game had a really rudimentary animations for most of the actions in first and third person, but the updated animations are way more fluid, dynamic, responsive. They're still not quite as impressive as some of the other tactical FPS games on the market, but they're generally a huge leap in quality from what came before. Now, getting further into the mods, there seems to be just a ton more than the last time I was checking out the game. The VR mod for this game is actually pretty interesting. It uses a universal plugin for Unreal Engine 4 and 5 called UEVR, so while it's not explicitly for Operation Harsh Doorstop, it does work quite well with the game. And considering how few tactical multiplayer shooters there are for VR, having this plugin work in OHD is pretty big. I can pretty much count the number of VR tactical shooters worth playing on one hand, and that number shrinks when you add multiplayer support. VR might not be a huge deal for everyone, but for VR gamers, having a game like OHD available to them is massive. Hopefully the game's community can continue to tailor the mod for this game specifically, especially if this could work with vehicle systems. Players might be able to do stuff like VR tank combat or aircraft controls. It could be pretty darn cool. Now, one of the more polished and fun mods was the Plastic Faction Overhaul. This transforms Operation Harsh Doorstop into a Green Army Men FPS complete with custom HUD elements and maps. Now, I've definitely played some other Green Army Men games in the past, but they usually feel a bit more constrained since they don't often support modding. The Plastic Faction mod could theoretically support all of the base game content in OHD, so it could be your classic arcade FPS with Green Army Men, or it could be a massive tactical experience set on huge open maps. As funny as it is to frag out on a map that looks like some kid's bedroom, the possibilities for plastic faction seem a lot less limited. Then of course there's a ton of new community-made maps, and I gotta say some of them are pretty darn impressive. District, Exurb, Stream, Bridge, and particularly Brutal all stand out as very cool maps. District and Exurb are smaller scale maps designed more for infantry combat. Stream is a recreation of a map with the same name from the game Viet Cong, and it really gives the Vietnam War vibe. Bridge is your classic massive open air combat map featuring, well, a bridge. And Brutal is a futuristic mountainside map with interesting architecture and a real sense of thematic design. And I gotta say, this last one is probably one of the best mod maps that I've checked out so far, since it really does feel very distinct and different from what the base game offers. And it serves as a nice reminder that OHD doesn't just have to be a hardcore milsim experience. It can very easily branch off into any other theme or time period or really whatever you want. Now, when it comes to smaller scale mods, there's a few that stood out to me as something that could become really interesting. The body cam mod puts the trendy body cam FPS thing that's been doing the rounds lately into Operation Harsh Doorstop, and it's actually kind of engaging. It is very janky as the FPS view models for weapons constantly clip with the camera and you see the borders of what the game is rendering for your arms, but with some refinement, OHD could be the first tactical milsim FPS body cam game set on a massive squad-sized map. And this mod can also be integrated with other mods to create something like a co-op survival shooter or a door breacher FPS like Ready or Not, where you could see your teammates' perspective from their body cam feeds. And that's definitely one of the cooler things about OHD is that the mods don't only work in isolation. They can be combined to create entirely unique experiences. One example of this is the Ragdoll Death system. This mod has already been combined with another mod that adds blood effects to the game, and together they're a big leap in terms of the core quality of the combat. Killed soldiers will grab for wounded areas and fall to the ground realistically. It adds a ton to the immersion factor, and I hope that these types of mods end up being combined with the actual game itself. Sort of like beginning to crowdsource some of the core content features. Then of course there are some, well, kind of joke mods like The Day After. This mod adds zombies to the game that randomly walk around the map. And the cool thing is that I don't think I've ever played a traditional multiplayer FPS game where zombies were just a threat on both sides, like Battlefield with zombies or something. It's almost always just like one side is zombies and the other side is people, or the zombie mode is a wave survival thing or something like that. Just having zombies on a trench warfare map in World War II weapons was a bit of a trip, and I could easily see a whole mode built around this type of mod. Now, it is impressive just how much progress this game has made over the past 10 months. That said, if you download the game and expect something to feel like a complete and polished experience, well, in many ways it does still feel like an early version of Squad. There's still quite a few bugs, like higher FOVs seem to break some of my magnified optics, fall damage feels really inconsistent, and some of the audio design still feels quite rough. That said, new content, features, and refinements have made it feel more complete and a little closer to a fully realized game. But for the average gamer, some of the features and mods still need a bit more time to cook, in my opinion. Now, the appeal of games as a modding platform like Garry's mod or Arma is that the core identity of the game tends to get out of the way and it lets the community do whatever they want with them. And they often succeed by offering tons of variety in the pre-made content and encourage experimentation with that content. OHD's developers seem to have this goal in sight, but they're still a little bit short on some of the base game content, polish, and extra features. But it seems like it's really only a matter of time before they actually deliver in these areas. Overall, I think this game is definitely on the right track. When OHD was in its very early stages, I found it a bit challenging to try and understand the full vision of this game. But now that the community's had a bit more time to build up content around it, it's becoming much more apparent. It's one of those games where in the coming years it could be a platform for developing the next big military game hit. Insurgency, Counter-Strike, Team Fortress, Dota, and even Squad itself started out as mods for other games. OHD being an open platform for mods with core content that's rapidly approaching a state of parity with some of the bigger tactical shooters is a huge deal for modders and gamers looking for something different. I'll be following this game closely, and I'm excited to see what a truly open game platform can achieve for the FPS world. What do you guys think? Are you excited about the prospect of a completely free, community-driven tactical FPS experience? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this content, don't forget to give me a like, subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and ding that notification bell to beat the YouTube algorithm with me. Next up, check out this video on some of the best games that you can get for $15 or less. Truly some of my favorite games ever cost less than 15 bucks, and you don't want to miss it. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap, signing off.